I guess it was about 2010, maybe, when I took a trip to New Orleans. And during that time, I interviewed lots of people, some who knew her, some who just knew of her, but knew the history of the place that she had grown up in, and the place that I called, and I wrote on the front of my book, it was called Nigger Town. And it was called that because most of the people who lived in that enclave that Mahalia Jackson grew up in were former plantation workers, former sharecroppers, former children of slaves, or some of them had been slaves. So it was mostly African Americans who had traveled into New Orleans from other parts of the state and some other states. And that is what it was called. And Mahalia's family was one of those families. Her grandparents, her parents came to New Orleans and moved into that area. It was the only area that people that really didn't have a lot of money, didn't have jobs, it was the place that they could move into. So that's where she grew up. She spent her first 16 years in that little place in New Orleans. And she had a very hard childhood. I've talked about that. She loved New Orleans because New Orleans was full of vibrancy. The music was amazing, and she fell in love with music, of course. She loved all the sounds. She loved all the sights. She loved, her family. She grew up with mostly women, her aunts, and her Uncle Porter, who is kind of a name unto himself because he was the one who really brought all of her family members to New Orleans from the place that they lived on the plantation. So she had a happy childhood up to an extent. But at the age of 6, she lost her mother. She and her brother Peter was 3 years older than her. And their mother, Charity, died. And after that, Mahalia and her brother Peter was taken in by their Aunt Duke. And Aunt Duke deserves a book all her own because she had an amazing personality. She was a really hard taskmaster, kind of a hard person, but she also had a heart of gold. She believed in raising children up the way that she was raised up. And she didn't take any kind of stuff from Mahalia or her brother. So, there was kind of a tug of war between Aunt Duke and Mahalia.